around, we're heading into more of the press, but this time around reviewing what is coming in from print media with the press review this morning. Now, pretty much the situation when it comes to business reports that are coming in from here is that when you look at more of the business reports, we will start off with the Independent, looking at how Uganda Airlines Airbus A330 800 review is in here. There is one where they're actually saying that with only 2 airlines in the world currently flying the Airbus A330-800 Neo, it is a rare sight that an even more unique opportunity to fly the wide body. Uganda Airlines acquired 2 of the type with a plan to service a long-haul network in here as far as and stretch as far as Guangzhou in China. So when you look at that, it is what we're having in here. And then looking at the Uganda Airlines, it has actually been making rounds. Yesterday, Kosase in Parliament was actually reviewing the salary scheme, or the salary as the salaries given to the top officials in there. And some Ugandans were quick to point fingers on how they earn a lot of money. That is according to the reports that were coming in from Kosase in there, but they are yet to come out with the final report on the salary, on the rightful salary that they earn, because some Ugandans were surprised that even the CEO earns more than the president currently in terms of the government salary allocations. Okay, now away from the Independent, we cross over to the New Vision, as the New Vision has highlighted that only 19% borrow from formal financial institutions. So when you look at this one, is that 19% of Ugandans borrow from formal financial institutions, according to the Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, that is Ramadan Gobi. So Ramadan Gobi says that whereas the number of Ugandans who borrow from financial institutions is still low, it doubles the average of sub-Saharan African countries, and it stands at 10% of that particular figure for the Ugandans who borrow. Only 19% of Ugandans borrow from formal financial institutions. That is according to the Permanent Secretary. But then also, away from that one, when you look at the other side of the coin, he was speaking during the Financial Inclusion and Financial Literacy Forum in Kampala. So Ramadan Gobi said that whereas the number of Ugandans who borrow from formal financial institutions was still low, it almost doubles that figure of the sub-Saharan African countries, of which Uganda is also inclusive. So speaking of the other issue with the Daily Monitor, is that they've also mentioned something to do with the ICT Ministry, which is committed on reducing cost of internet. That is according to Joyce Nabosa Sebugwao, who's the State Minister for ICT, and this was during an exhibition of ICT in Kampala last week during the celebrations of the Youth Day, the International Youth Day. Now, the ICT State Minister, Joyce Nabosa Sebugwao, said that government is working with partners to achieve seamless internet connectivity and is likely to bring down the cost of internet in Uganda. So this was at the FinTech Landscape exhibition, which is a culmination of this year's 40 Days 40 Fintechs initiative, which initially shines a light on financial technology players from across East Africa. So when you look at all these details here, is that Uganda looks at the e-commerce, or looks at the internet as an opportunity to at least broaden the gap of the economy, get back to winning ways and getting back to recovery as it is supposed to be, because that is something that we want to implement ably. Now, lastly, from the news recap here, rather from the press review, is that the CBR might be increased further. This is according to the Bank of Uganda. So according to the Bank of Uganda monetary policy, they might tighten even further with inflationary pressures to ensure that inflation reverts to its medium-term target of 5%, because the inflation is already shooting up and hitting 8% in no time. So the Bank of Uganda said it may be forced in the near term to further tighten the monetary stance if these pressures of inflation continue. This was a statement from the Bank of Uganda Deputy Governor Michael Watig Ego, who said it's the only way through which they will revert inflation to the 5% target that they do not want to exceed. We already exceeded it. We're already in 7% of the inflation, so that clearly shows you how much it is. Now, and we actually currently at 9% of the inflation, not 7%. So you can see how we are running into something that we want to avoid very, very fast, because the inflation, the central bank rate to no, we are 7%, but the central bank rate is now to 9% from the initial one, and it is a way that the government, the Bank of Uganda, doesn't want inflation to exceed to 9% already. So it is already 7.9%. Let me get these figures right. Our inflation currently is at 7.9%, and that jumped from 6.8% in the month of June. Remember, inflation has been steadily rising for quite some time, with some huge percentage points in there, and worryingly for the state of the nation. And that brings us to the end of our press review. Now let's get into the SMB international updates. With the international updates, we head to South Africa as the European Union imports of coal surge eightfold, and this has replaced the Russian fossil fuels in the southern African country. Now, coal sales from South Africa to Europe rose eightfold during the first 6 months of 2022. This is compared with last year, as demand for the fossil fuel surged ahead of a ban on Russian coal, according to Thungela Resources, a South Africa best thermal coal exporter. The European Union banned Russian coal imports in response to the invasion of Ukraine in April, but it was not until 10th August that the ban fully took effect as part of the wide-ranging sanctions. European countries, which previously imported 45% of their coal from South Africa, from Russia, and have been switching away from expensive natural gas to coal ahead of the ban, started to source fossil fuel from other countries. That has included Colombia, Australia, and the United States, and also South Africa. So Thungela, a leading South Africa coal exporter, said Europe was competing with Asia for South African coal. The Netherlands, Germany, Poland, Denmark, France, Italy, and Ukraine are among European countries importing growing quantities of coal from South Africa. Now, besides that, in the 5 months of this year, European countries imported more than 3 million tons of coal from South Africa. This is over 40% more than the total volume in 2021. The figures from South Africa's Richards Bay Coal Terminal showed it delivered 3,240,752 tons of coal to European countries by end of May this year. That is 15% of RBCT's overall exports, up from 2,321,190, which is 4% in 2021. Now, the coal sales from South Africa to Europe rose eightfold during the first 6 months of 2022, compared with last year's demand for the fossil fuel, which surged ahead of the ban on Russian coal, according to Thungela Resources, a South African best thermal coal exporter. As European countries are switching options now away from away from Russia, now they are looking for alternatives, and South Africa is providing those alternatives for them to clearly see that coal is exported to the other European superpowers. Away from South Africa, we cross over to the United Kingdom, as the United Kingdom is set to cut import taxes from some of the world's poorest countries. UK to cut import taxes on hundreds more products from some of the world's poorest countries to boost trade links. The developing countries trading scheme comes into force in January and builds on a scheme in the United Kingdom, which was first part of while a member of the European Union. Goods such as clothes, shoes, and foods not widely produced in the UK will benefit from lower or zero tariffs. The scheme covers 65 developing countries. It is on top of the thousands of products which developing nations can already export to the UK without tariffs, and will affect around 99% of goods that are imported from Africa. The Department for International Trade said that the work was part of a wider push by the UK to use trade to drive prosperity and help eradicate poverty, as well as reduce dependency on aid. Then the scheme includes powers to suspend a country on the grounds of human rights or labor violations, as well as for not meeting their climate change obligations. Now, International Trade Secretary Anne-Marie Trevelyan said, as an independent trading nation, the United Kingdom are taking back control of their trade policy, and they are making decisions that back United Kingdom businesses and help with the cost of living, as well as support the economies of developing countries all around the world. Now, many goods from textiles to fruit in 65 of the world's poorest nations already benefit from reduced or zero tariffs when sold to the United Kingdom. Now, this makes them more appealing. Then the new scheme cuts some of these charges further, for example, on cucumbers, which cannot be produced here during the winter. It also simplifies the rules for which items, such as some textiles, qualify for preferential treatment. Then the changes could save importers millions of pounds, although even if passed on in full, the price savings for consumers may be marginal. Coming when aid to developing countries has been reduced, the scheme underlines the government policy of using trade instead, and then the scheme is also removing some seasonal tariffs on products like cucumbers, which cannot be grown in the United Kingdom during winter, so they are tariff-free during this period for the majority of countries under that scheme. It also simplifies trade rules, such as rules of origin, which dictate what proportion of a product must be made in its country of origin. Mohammed Jabbar, Managing Director of the DBL Group, a textile business from Bangladesh, said this was a game changer for his company in India. And then lastly, from the international outlets, we return to the African continent with Tanzania, as Pakistan is set to invest 2.3 trillion Tanzanian shillings in the country. Pakistan is planning to inject some $1 billion in Tanzania during the next 5 years as the Asian nation seeks to up its involvement in various sectors of the latter's economy. The plan, which comes within 1 month after the launch of the Tanzanian-Pakistan Business Council, will benefit in agriculture, water, mining, education, health, port, solar energy, climate change, and solid waste management sectors. This is according to the Tanzanian-Pakistan Business Council, the TPBC chairman Shahid Majid revealed. And also, realization of the plan would mean that Pakistan will more than double the value of its investments in Tanzania, which stood at $490 million in 2020, according to data from the Pakistan Embassy. Speaking in a meeting convened under the auspices of the Welfare Association of Pakistanis, that is WAP, as part of the celebrations to mark the 75th Independence Day of Pakistan, Majid said that the $1 billion will be released in phases depending on government priorities. The remaining 70%, which translates into $700 million, would come in form of direct investment. Now, this direct investment that would involve public-private partnerships, the PPPs between Tanzania and the government of Pakistan. Now, the PPPs are a mechanism for the government to procure and implement the public infrastructure or services using the resources and expertise of the expertise of the private sector. Now, according to him, once the funds are approved, they expect to establish fertilizer factories and industries to process raw materials and produce final products to boost export and create job opportunities for the people in Tanzania. Addressing the event, Pakistan High Commissioner to Tanzania, Mohammed Bihan, said trade between Tanzania and Pakistan has been on the increase during the past years. The value of trade between the two countries stood at $233 million during the fiscal year 2021-2022 from $163 million during the preceding year. He said Tanzania was largely being boosted by its political stability, the conducive investment opportunities, and good leadership. He said that as they mark the 75th Independence Day, the government will significantly continue to extend its relations with Tanzania, especially that currently there are around 3,000 Pakistanis living in Tanzania. And should the money be invested as planned, Pakistan should be eyeing to become one of the largest sources of foreign investment in Tanzania. Until 2019, China was the largest source of foreign investment in Tanzania, with investments valued at $5.963 million. And until that time, the UK came second with investments valued at $5.54 billion, while the US, Mauritius, and India completing the top 5 list with investments worth $4.7 billion and $2.38 billion and $2.2 billion respectively. That is the US, $4.7 billion, Mauritius, $4.308 billion, and then India with $2.2 billion. And that is it for the international news updates this morning. Let's get into the motivation time with the business quote of the day. Helen Keller, an American author, political activist and lecturer, says, "Character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success will therefore be achieved." The character will never be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. So in this particular quote, they're actually telling you more about how you can realize that character is not something that you will come up with at the end of the day, or it's not something that is going to be shaped under weakness. You need to experience some hardships in life before you can come out and and steadily say that, well, I'm good to go. Now with character, it has to be built under failure, under different challenges, and the more challenges you encounter, you get to learn how to deal with these challenges. You get to learn how to overcome certain problems. You get solutions every other day. You become a solution provider for your business. You become a solution provider for the team that you're leading as a team leader. You become a solution provider to your clientele or to your customer base in there. So it is something that you need to have, that once you want to strive for success, there are lots of things that you need to focus more on. And these particular things that you need to focus more on include making sure that you strengthen yourself as an individual. Because remember, sometimes as an entrepreneur, you are the father and the mother of this business. You being the parent owner of this business means it depends entirely on you, and you are like a breadwinner at home. You have to make sure that you bring something back home. So, and then your character has to be shaped regardless of the hardships that you face in your business, and that way you will be able to understand the market space and see how you can overcome most of the things. Now, away from the business quote of the day, how about this from the business tip? And the business tip says, stick to the budget. Overspending can be the death of your business. In fact, according to a study conducted by the United States Bank, is that 82% of small businesses fail due to poor cash flow management. And when creating your budget and business plan, a tip is to overestimate expense and underestimate income. Now that way you'll never be stretched too thin and always be prepared for unexpected costs. So stick to the budget. Overspending can be the death of your business. In fact, according to a study, you can see that 82% of the businesses fail due to poor cash flow. And in Uganda, in a recent report that was revealed in 2016, that Uganda, being ranked the world's most entrepreneurial country, whereby we have fresh minds. Ugandans have business ideas every other day. It is very easy for a Ugandan to start up a business. But the only challenge is, unlike for the Indians, who can start up a business and it stands the test of time for centuries and decades, I should say. But in a Ugandan perspective, we are good at starting up these businesses, but they do not exceed 2 years. Most of them only last for a year. Then the second year, things start crumbling. Someone either loses it and decides to quit the business or choose to a different style of business. And in this way, you got to realize that sometimes we never manage our spending or our expenses as business people. Sometimes we tend to spend more than we earn as Ugandans, and I believe we all fall victim to this particular one. We spend more than we earn, and at the end of the day, we end up eating the capital that we're supposed to add to the business. Now, the money that we're supposed to remain in the business to keep the business up and also to ensure that the business expands is the same amount of money that we use to spend on ourselves or spend on other luxuries, instead of focusing on establishing a huge capital base for your business. So clearly you need to understand how your expenses are, especially under your business, to see how you will gain and expand, and also to continue having your business in a position that you would want it. For example, maintaining the business and maintaining these sales is something that is very vital and important. And that is it for the first hour of your morning and daily Kickstarter. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko, and this is Smart Means Business. Remember, you can get more of the updates on our website, www.smart24.tv, and then you can get onto our YouTube channel, that is Smart24 TV Live. Please remember to subscribe. We're on the journey to 2,000 subscribers over there. And then on our Instagram is Smart24_TV, and then YouTube, and then Twitter, Smart24 TV as well. And then you can as well follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jerome Paul Sonko, and we can discuss more business ideas and lots of social life ideas. Stick around. When I return, we have a discussion with the Coffee Court looking at Uganda's coffee sector. Good morning.